I want to ask you a question that I already know your answer is yes, but you may not remember why it's yes until I jog your memory a bit. So hang with me. And by all means, don't point out somebody else who may be watching this with you. Here's the question. Have you ever lied? That's not the question. We know the answer to that. Have you ever lied in an attempt to assure someone that you could be trusted? It's pretty crazy, isn't it? Why would anybody think that would work? But we have all done it. The answer is yes. Remember when you were a teenager, you got your driver's license and the rule was you can drive to school and back home, but nowhere else. You know, your parents were adamant. So you were all good with that until your friends wanted to run by DQ after school, and lo and behold, they needed somebody with a car. So you took a few extra passengers and a little detour. But the funny thing is, word always gets around, doesn't it? And a few days later, your mom asked, "Did you drive to DQ the other day without telling me?" And you in that moment had to decide whether to tell your mom the truth or keep your mom's trust. So maybe you lied, hoping she'd keep trusting you with the car. Another way to think about this is this. Have you ever compromised your integrity to protect your reputation as somebody who has integrity? Have you ever not told the whole story? You know, bent the truth a little, covered up some things, left a few facts out, or flat out lied because you wanted to protect your reputation as someone who has integrity? We all, in some way, live with that pressure, don't we? Because shame avoidance is strong in all of us. Embarrassment avoidance is a real thing for all of us. So as odd as it sounds, well, sometimes we'd rather be bad than look bad. But the irony of all this is if you come to me and confess something to me that I wouldn't have known otherwise, and you telling the truth to me makes you look bad, if you own up to something you messed up even though you knew I probably wouldn't find out about it, well, my respect for you doesn't diminish. I actually trust you more, because you just proved you're a person of integrity. More on that in just a moment. Welcome to all of you to Journey at Home, where we want to inspire you to follow Jesus and live a better life. If it's your first time watching, we definitely hope it won't be your last time. We want to give you helpful content that's going to help you know and follow Jesus better. So just hit that subscribe button, hit the notifications bell so you don't miss anything. And let me catch you up. This is episode 2 of our series, The Perfect Guide for Life, How Integrity Brings Clarity and Courage. And in this episode, we're going to define exactly what integrity is, because your integrity impacts the direction of your life, and your integrity impacts the lives of the people around you. Now, this is really easy to overlook, especially when we feel like acting with integrity is going to cost us something. But our lack of integrity creates damage in the lives of the people we love and the people we care about most. Now, the irony of all this is we're all quick to excuse our lack of integrity away, but we expect integrity from everybody else around us. I expect it from my leaders, my teachers, my pastors, my employers, my employees, my family, my friends, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, whoever it is. If they don't demonstrate integrity, it's rare that I'm going to excuse that away, whether I'm a person of integrity or not, which actually points to this overarching standard of ought to that we all live by. As we learned last episode, we all tend to appeal to a universal standard of ought to that didn't originate with you. It originated outside of you with God, and it informs our conscience. So our integrity is anchored to something far more concrete than just changing opinions. But here's the challenge for us. How do you keep integrity? And how do you get it back if you've lost it? Or how do you guard it so you don't lose it? I mean, you know where to go if you want to improve your looks, right? Not that you need to at all, but you know where to go. You know what to do if you want to improve your health. You know where to go and what to do if you want to improve your education or your work skills. But when it comes to your integrity, which is at the core of everything that matters in life, where do you go? What do you do? How do we keep it when the external and often internal pressure to compromise our integrity is relentless? Well, there's actually a North Star idea that can guide us. Today, I want to show you what that can be for you. It's taught all throughout the scriptures, but I'm going to keep it really simple, okay? I want to show you one principle that King Solomon wrote, and this is going to be the foundational verse for all the other episodes of this series. And short enough, it's simple enough that I want to ask you to actually memorize it. I think it'll be worth it for you, and I know you can do it. So here's what Solomon wrote. It's in Proverbs 11:3. He said, "The integrity of the upright will guide them." So Solomon says, why don't you make integrity the North Star that informs all your decisions? It's the perfect guide for life, because it's a decision-making filter that will always highlight your best long-term options, and it'll spotlight all of those off-base options that seem appealing to us. You know, the options that have this strong emotional pull in the moment, the options that tempt you to look good rather than be good, the options that lie and tell you, hey, there's a shortcut to get where you want to go, and it'll be okay just doing it this one time. Well, integrity reveals all the lies and it highlights the best way forward. It is a guide that determines your life's direction. Now, we're going to get back to the rest of that verse in a moment, but here's a question that you need to know the answer to. What guides you? What's your North Star? You have one. Is it integrity or is it pleasure? Is it profit? Is it looking good? Is it having the admiration and respect of people? Is it money or financial security? Is it power? Is it having control? Is it having a good reputation? What is the filter that guides and drives your decisions when you're trying to figure out what to do? Now listen, I know we all say we want integrity to guide us. I get that. But we don't know if integrity guides us until maintaining integrity costs us. In other words, integrity is just a good idea until you're willing to choose integrity when it's going to hurt you. It's when the pop quiz comes and you choose to make integrity your guide that then you know what you really value. Then you know what you'll really do, which is why, by the way, you should be very careful when you see someone else have a failure of integrity. If you're like me, your first reaction is to go, well, I'd never do that. But unless you've been in their shoes, you actually don't know that. Integrity is easy to talk about, but it's hard to practice. And yet it is worth it because of the payoff. There's this great word picture hidden in the first part of this verse that Solomon wrote. He said, the integrity of the upright will guide them. Literally, it means the integrity of those who stand straight up. It's going to guide them. Now, here's why I love this. When you're leaning over, you're looking down, what are you focused on? You're only focused on what's right in front of you. And what's right in front of you is often not what's best for you. But it is the thing you want to do because it's got this strong emotional appeal, right? So as long as you're looking down, you've got a very limited perspective. You're only going to see some limited options. But to walk with integrity requires you to straighten up, to take the long view, to look up, to look out at where you're headed. People of integrity think about where their decisions are going to take them in years and not days. They make decisions based on what story they want to tell one day in the future, not today. So again, what guides you? If your first response when you're under pressure is to lie, to excuse, to blame, to cover up things, to point the finger at somebody else, to deflect, well, those are some clues for you, aren't they? They're clues that something besides integrity is your guide. They're clues that looking good may be more important than being good for you. So if we're that quick to abandon our values, our standards, and maybe we need to figure out what's driving us, and maybe that discovery will be so upsetting, so embarrassing that we decide to change. We decide to let integrity drive our lives because the alternative, according to Solomon, isn't so good. He says, but the crookedness, and you see the crooked people live bent over. They're not upright. The crookedness of the treacherous people operate in the dark. They lie, they cover things up, they deceive. The crookedness of the treacherous, he says, will destroy them. Not immediately, but eventually, ultimately. Decisions driven by a lack of integrity catch up to and destroy them because they wouldn't look up. They wouldn't let integrity guide them. They were just focused on the now, and there is a price to pay because you can't outrun your consequences forever. I don't think I need to convince you that's true. I mean, your greatest regrets in life relationally, they all have this one thing in common, don't they? You had your head down. You're focused on what you want in the moment, not what you ultimately wanted for your relationship. We've all done that. So here's the deal. You get to decide, I get to decide, which of these two people we want to be. But we will not decide with our words. We will decide with our actions. We'll decide with our integrity. Integrity is doing what you ought to even when it costs you. That's it. It's having the will and the courage to do the right thing even when it costs you something. So is that true of you? When is the last time you did the right thing and it cost you? When's the last time you told the truth even though you knew it wouldn't be good for you? When's the last time you took option B even though it was going to cost you more financially? I mean, option A over here was so appealing, but just didn't pass the integrity test. When's the last time you took ownership of the problem that you created instead of trying to deflect or deny? Blame somebody else. Well, that's what people with integrity do. When they mess up, they own up and they clean up, don't they? Now, if you're a bit of a perfectionist like me, that is hard to do sometimes. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want people to see us making mistakes. But listen, the earlier you take responsibility, the better it is for you and for all your relationships. When it comes to the people in your life, your integrity is far more important than your infallibility. See, according to Solomon, God selection determines your life direction. Say that again. God selection determines your life direction. You decide what's going to be your guide. But remember, only the upright end up where they want to be. If you live life hiding and deceiving, you'll end up in a predictable place. You'll end up hurting yourself and the people closest to you because the crookedness of the treacherous will eventually destroy them. Or you can choose to have the courage to do the right thing even when it costs you something. And I'm not going to lie to you, you'll probably pay a price in the short term. But the upright are standing up, looking out at the long term, and that's where all the benefits of integrity are found. So this week, do this for me. Will you pay attention to what's guiding you, to what's driving you? And then will you choose integrity as your guide in those situations where you're tempted to take another route? Have the will and the courage to do what you know you ought to, even when it costs you, because in the long run, it is always the best thing for you.